Now before we actually dive into the JavaScript language and start learning all the details, let's first get a few things out of the way. These are some basic things that you need to know about JavaScript before you actually start learning the language. First, let's talk about where do you actually put JavaScript. Now JavaScript is a programming language, sure, but how do you actually write JavaScript? And how do you actually attach it or make it work with HTML and CSS inside the web browser? These are some basic questions that you might have when you're starting out. So let's tackle them first. Now when it comes to the placement of the JavaScript code, you have a few options. Specifically, you can put your JavaScript code in one of three places. First is inline with HTML. This is actually a bad practice, so you shouldn't do this. The second option is within script tags. Now in HTML, you actually have a dedicated script tag for inputting JavaScript. And in an HTML file, you can actually put in a pair of script tags and write a JavaScript code inside this pair of script tags, and those JavaScript will be executed along with the HTML. Or, as is the case for most real-world applications, you can put JavaScript in external and dedicated JavaScript files. Let's take a look at examples of each one of them. First, let's talk about putting JavaScript in line with HTML. Now, a lot of HTML elements and tags actually have JavaScript event handlers as HTML attributes, and you can put JavaScript code inside these attributes. For example, let's say that we have a button tag. So in this case, we've created a button tag, and inside the button tag, we have an onClick attribute. Now the onClick attribute can accept some JavaScript code that will be executed when that element is clicked. So inside this onClick attribute, we can put in some JavaScript. In this case, we're calling the alert method, which basically alerts a string to the user's browser. And then inside the button tag, we have a text click here, and then we finish it off with the closing button tag. So this is an example of putting JavaScript in line with HTML. However, this is very messy and it's a bad practice. You should never do this. There are a lot of better places to put JavaScript, and inline with HTML is not one of them. You shouldn't mix JavaScript with HTML because it makes the code a lot messier and a lot harder to manage. So don't put JavaScript inline with HTML. This is a very bad practice. A better place to put JavaScript will be inside script tags inside an HTML file. So let's say an example. First, again, we have the button tag in this case, and inside which we have the text click here, and then the ending button tag. But note that we don't have the onClick attribute. And that is because we want to put JavaScript separately in its dedicated script tags. So we just have the button tag with the text click here. And then we put in the starting script tag. And inside the script tag is where we can input the JavaScript. So in this cases, we can write the JavaScript as document.querySelectorButton.addEventListener click, and then a function which basically alerts this is a JavaScript alert to the user's browser. And then we end up the function, and also we end up the script tag. And that is how you can write JavaScript inside script tags. Now the result of this code is exactly the same. When you click the button, an alert will be displayed inside your browser. However, the difference is that we're not mixing HTML with JavaScript. We have JavaScript inside its dedicated script tag, and HTML is completely separate from it. This is a much better practice, and using script tags inside the HTML file is often used for small scripts that you might want to include within your HTML. Now, one thing to note here is that we're using a lot of advanced features of JavaScript and browser APIs in these examples. So if you don't understand the code, don't worry. We will eventually explain all of these in this course. So if you just go through this course, you'll gradually understand everything that's happening here, and you'll be able to understand exactly how this code works. But for now, you don't have to understand the code. This is just an example, and it's here to illustrate that you can put JavaScript code inside script tags. Now for bigger applications where you have a lot of JavaScript code, you might separate them into different files and have their JavaScript code inside dedicated JavaScript files. And these JavaScript files end with a .js extension. So any file that ends with .js is a JavaScript file. So in those cases, you can have JavaScript separated in JavaScript files and HTML separate from it. And you'll need to link the HTML and JavaScript files using a script tag. So how does this work? For this example, we have two different files. One is index.html, which is our HTML file, and we have a dedicated JavaScript file called script.js. And we'll assume these two files are in the same directory inside our computer. So in this case, we put the HTML in the HTML file and the JavaScript separately in its own JavaScript file. So how does this work? So inside HTML, we again put our HTML code. In this case, the HTML code is simply the button element. So we have a button tag that says click here. And then we have the script tag. But instead of inputting the JavaScript directly within the script tag, we have a source attribute. And this source attribute points to the JavaScript file's name. So in this case, the JavaScript file is named script.js, So we refer to that file inside the script tag in the source attribute. So we type in src equals script.js, and this links the script.js file with the HTML file. So when you load this HTML file inside the browser, the script.js file will load alongside with it as well, and the JavaScript inside the script.js file will also be executed. And that is how you can add external scripts with HTML. So now that we have a HTML inside our HTML file, and we also have linked and referred to the script file from our HTML file, now let's actually write the JavaScript inside a script.js file. So in this case, we actually put the exact same code that we saw in the previous slide. document.querySelector.button.addEventListener click, and then a function which basically alerts this is a JavaScript alert to the user's browser. And then we end up the function and wrap up the JavaScript code. Now do note that inside the script.js file, we don't need the script text. We just put the JavaScript code and that's enough. And that is how you can put JavaScript in external JavaScript files and link them and refer to them from inside our HTML to load those along with the HTML file. And that is how you can put JavaScript in external scripts.